You know, we've all seen them. These mega projects. These incredible feats of engineering that literally reshape the world around us. We see the finished product, right? The gleaming skyscraper, the massive offshore rig. But what you don't see is this invisible network of connections holding it all together. And it's in those unseen gaps where these billion-dollar projects either come together perfectly or they fail spectacularly.
All right, I want to start with just one number, 18%. Just let that sink in for a second. What if I told you this number's kind of like the silent killer of big, complex projects? It's like a hidden tax on ambition that companies just keep paying over and over again.
So what's that 18% all about? Well, according to research from the Construction Industry Institute, that's the average cost overrun for projects that don't have a formal plan for managing the spaces between their different teams. And let's be clear, this isn't some rounding error. On a multi-billion-dollar project, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars just gone, wasted, all because of miscommunication in those critical connection points.
So what is this blind spot we're talking about? Well, the thing is, modern mega projects are just way too big for any one company to build. So they get broken up into these massive work packages, and each one is handled by a different contractor, an expert in their field. The real danger isn't what happens inside one of those packages. The danger is at the boundary, where one contractor's work has to connect perfectly with another's. And these connection points, they're called interfaces.
Here's the official, by-the-book definition, and it's pretty broad for a good reason. See, an interface isn't just a physical thing like two pipes connecting. It could be technical data, a software handoff, who gets to use the site on a Tuesday. It's literally any point where responsibility and, risk is handed from one team to another.
And if you want to get a sense of just how massive this challenge can be, check out this example from a real project plan. The Lower Zakum oil field. We're talking about 7 huge, independent construction companies all working at the same time to build this enormous offshore network. Can you just imagine? Each one has to connect to the others in hundreds, maybe even thousands of different places. The potential for absolute chaos is it's huge.
So, how do you prevent that chaos? How do you stop it all from falling apart? Well, you don't just cross your fingers and hope for the best. You apply a formal, really rigorous discipline to manage all those connections. And this is where we enter the world of interface management. It's how you build a solid bridge across all those dangerous gaps.
Now, when you hear management, you might think, oh great, more readings. But no, this isn't about that at all. Interface management is a structured system. It's a proactive process for identifying, defining, and controlling every single thing that passes from one team to another, making sure every single piece of the puzzle is going to fit perfectly.
Probably the best way to wrap your head around this is to think of it like a hierarchy of formal, documented handshakes. It's a system that starts with the big picture and drills all the way down to the tiniest detail, so that absolutely nothing is left up to guesswork.
So let's walk through how this actually works. First up, you identify every single team involved. Easy enough. Next, you define the specific interface points, or IPs. These are the exact spots where their work touches. Once you've mapped those out, you create a formal interface agreement, or IA, for each one. You can think of it like a mini contract that spells out who's doing what and when. And finally, for all the questions that are definitely going to come up, you use a trackable system of interface queries, or IQs. The most important part of all this, you get a complete auditable record of every decision. No more he said, she said. It's all right there in black and white.
Let's drill down a bit on what an interface point actually is. It could be something you can literally touch, like a specific flange on a pipeline. Or it could be a technical boundary, like the data protocol between two computer systems. It could even be purely logistical, like deciding who gets to use a certain area of the construction site. And as you can see from this real example here, every single IP gets its own unique ID number. That crazy long number isn't just for show, it means everything is tracked with absolute precision.
Okay, so you've got this great process, but a process is pretty useless without the right people to run it and a master plan to guide them, right? This whole system doesn't just run itself. It needs a dedicated team and a really comprehensive playbook.
Right in the center of this whole universe is the interface manager. Now, this is absolutely crucial. This is not a part-time gig for some engineer who's already swamped with other work. On a big project, this is a dedicated, full-time leader whose only job is to live and breathe these interfaces. They're the central hub, the master coordinator, making sure information flows where it needs to and that every connection is being managed proactively.
And the team's playbook? It's this document, the Interface Management Plan, or IMP. This thing is the project's single source of truth for how everyone's going to collaborate. It officially defines every single interface, it details the exact workflow we just talked about, it assigns all the responsibilities, and it even sets the schedule for meetings and reports. It basically turns chaotic, random communication into a predictable, manageable system.
So, after all this planning, this process, this dedicated team, what's the payoff? We saw the cost of chaos at the beginning. Now let's look at the measurable, data-driven impact you get when you bring in some control.
And the difference is, well, it's night and day. Look at this. On the left, you've got the project without a plan. Confusion about who does what, constant rework, endless finger-pointing, and that massive 18% cost overrun. But on the right, with formal interface management, you get clear responsibilities, you get proactive risk mitigation, and the cost growth is dramatically smaller.
And that brings us to this number, 4%. Now look, it's not zero, because let's be real, these giant projects are always going to have challenges. But 4%? That represents a state of control. It is the tangible financial proof that managing those unseen gaps is one of the smartest investments a project can ever make.
Let me put that another way. Going from 18% to 4% is a 78% reduction in cost overruns. That's the power of a formal system. That's the power of creating a blueprint, not just for the steel and the concrete, but for the hundreds of human and technical connections that actually bring these amazing things to life.
And here's the thing to remember. This idea isn't just for billion-dollar oil platforms. Any project where multiple teams have to work together has interfaces. Think about software development, a marketing campaign, heck, even planning a big wedding. It all has interfaces. So it really makes you think. Take a look at your own work, your own organization. Where are the unmanaged gaps, and what might they be costing you?